In our previous lesson, we explored one of the Heart Sutra's most astonishing declarations. There is no ignorance and no end of ignorance. We discovered that the Heart Sutra is not rejecting the Buddha's teaching of dependent origination. Rather, it is inviting us to see that teaching through the lens of perfect wisdom. Today, we continue that journey by exploring an even deeper question. What happens to birth and death when we truly understand emptiness? At first, this question may seem impossible to answer. Birth and death appear to be the most undeniable realities of existence. Every living being is born, and every living being eventually dies. We witness this in nature, in our families, and within our own lives. Even the Buddha was born and eventually entered parinirvana. So how can the wisdom of the Heart Sutra transform our understanding of something so fundamental? The answer begins by understanding that Buddhism is concerned with far more than the biological events of birth and death. While our physical life certainly begins and ends, the Buddha pointed to a much deeper process that unfolds moment after moment. Every time we cling to an identity, a new self is born. Every time that identity is challenged, threatened, or disappears, we experience its death. In this way, birth and death are not distant events that happen only once. They are occurring continuously within our own minds. Consider what happens when you wake up each morning. Within moments, the familiar story of me begins to reassemble itself. You remember your name, your profession, your responsibilities, your achievements, your disappointments, and your plans for the future. Without noticing it, a solid sense of I seems to arise. Throughout the day, this self is reinforced by countless thoughts. I want this. I don't like that. I succeeded. I failed. I deserve more. Yet if we investigate carefully, where exactly is this permanent self that seems so obvious? This question brings us directly to the Buddha's teaching of dependent origination. The Buddha explained that everything arises because of causes and conditions. Nothing exists independently or by its own power. A flower blossoms because of a seed, fertile soil, sunlight, rain, changing seasons, countless microorganisms, and innumerable supporting conditions. Remove enough of these conditions, and the flower cannot appear. The same principle applies to what we call ourselves. Our bodies depend upon our parents, food, water, air, gravity, and countless biological processes. Our personalities are shaped by language, culture, education, memories, relationships, and experiences stretching back through our lives. Even our opinions and preferences are influenced by conditions we often do not recognize. When we look carefully, we discover that there is no isolated, independent self standing apart from all these causes and conditions. Dependent origination therefore reveals a universe of profound interconnectedness. Nothing stands alone. Nothing possesses an independent existence. Everything exists only in relationship to everything else. This insight alone is already liberating, but the Heart Sutra carries it one step further. The Heart Sutra declares that because everything arises dependently, everything is empty. This statement has often been misunderstood. Emptiness does not mean that nothing exists or that life is an illusion in the sense of being meaningless. Instead, emptiness means that nothing possesses a permanent, unchanging, self-existing essence. Things exist, but they do not exist independently. This is one of the greatest insights of Mahayana Buddhism. Dependent origination explains how things arise, while emptiness explains the nature of what arises. Rather than contradicting each other, these two teachings illuminate one another perfectly. Imagine standing beside the ocean and watching waves roll toward the shore. Every wave has its own height, shape, movement, and lifespan. One wave may appear larger than another. Some are calm, while others are powerful. Yet every wave is simply the ocean expressing itself under changing conditions. The wave appears for a time, and then dissolves back into the sea. Was the wave truly born? It certainly appeared. Did it truly die? Its form disappeared, but the water itself remained exactly what it always was. Likewise, dependent origination explains how appearances come into being, while emptiness reveals that these appearances never possessed an independent existence in the first place. This understanding transforms our relationship with birth and death. Ordinarily, we imagine that an independent person comes into existence at birth and then completely disappears at death. This assumption creates tremendous fear. We spend much of our lives trying to protect something that feels permanently vulnerable. The Buddha gently invites us to examine whether this assumption is actually true. Consider a rainbow after a summer rain. It is beautiful, vivid, and unmistakably present. Yet can we separate the rainbow from sunlight, moisture, atmospheric conditions, and the position of the observer? If any one of these essential conditions changes, the rainbow disappears. Did the rainbow possess an independent existence while it appeared? No. Did it become absolute nothingness when it vanished? Again, no. It simply ceased appearing because the conditions that supported it had changed. Our own existence unfolds in much the same way. Our lives arise through an immeasurable web of conditions. Birth is the temporary coming together of these conditions, while death is their transformation. From the perspective of wisdom, nothing has been independently created, and nothing is independently destroyed. There is simply an ongoing process of arising and ceasing. This understanding does not ask us to deny the reality of grief or loss. Buddhism never tells us that we should not mourn those we love. Compassion remains as deep as ever. The difference is that wisdom frees us from believing that an independent self has somehow been annihilated. Instead, we recognize the continuous unfolding of causes and conditions that have always been changing. This becomes even clearer when we revisit the 12 links of dependent origination. Ignorance conditions mental formations. Mental formations condition consciousness. Consciousness conditions name and form. Name and form condition the 6 sense bases. The 6 sense bases condition contact. Contact conditions feeling. Feeling conditions craving. Craving conditions clinging. Clinging conditions becoming. Becoming conditions birth. Birth conditions aging and death. Notice that nowhere in this chain does anything arise independently. Every link depends upon another. Remove ignorance and the entire cycle begins to unravel. Yet the Heart Sutra invites us to see something even more profound. Every one of these links is itself empty. Ignorance is empty. Craving is empty. Clinging is empty. Becoming is empty. Birth is empty. Death is empty. None possesses a permanent essence. Imagine a line of dominoes standing upright. Each domino appears to push the next, creating the impression of an unstoppable chain. Yet the entire movement depends upon countless supporting conditions. Remove the arrangement, the force, or even a single critical piece, and the sequence changes completely. Samsara operates in much the same way. It appears solid only because ignorance repeatedly recreates the illusion of separate existence. This is why awakening is described not as escaping reality, but as seeing reality correctly. The world continues to function. Causes still produce effects. Karma continues to operate. Compassion remains essential. What disappears is the mistaken belief in a permanent self moving through these changing experiences. Some people misunderstand this teaching and conclude that if birth and death are empty, then life must be meaningless. The Buddha rejected this view just as strongly as he rejected the belief in an eternal, unchanging self. Emptiness is not nihilism. In fact, because everything depends upon everything else, every action matters profoundly. A single kind word can change another person's life. One generous act may inspire countless others. A moment of patience can prevent years of resentment. Because we are deeply interconnected, every thought, word, and action sends ripples throughout the world. Interdependence gives our lives profound significance. As our understanding deepens, compassion naturally blossoms. We begin to see that there has never been a completely separate me and you. The air we breathe has passed through forests. The food we eat depends upon farmers, insects, sunlight, rain, and fertile soil. Every piece of knowledge we possess has been handed down by countless teachers and generations before us. Our lives are woven together in ways that are impossible to fully measure. This is why the Bodhisattva dedicates his or her life to the welfare of all beings. Compassion is no longer merely a moral duty. It becomes the spontaneous expression of wisdom itself. When we see that we have never truly been separate, caring for others becomes as natural as caring for our own hands or eyes. Perhaps the greatest fear human beings carry is the fear of death. The Heart Sutra does not promise that our bodies will never die. Bodies age, cells change, mountains erode, stars are born and eventually fade away. Everything conditioned continues to transform. What changes through wisdom is not the reality of change, but our relationship with it. The wave no longer fears returning to the ocean because it realizes it was never separate from the ocean to begin with. In the same way, wisdom allows us to participate fully in life without desperately clinging to permanence where none can be found. Paradoxically, this understanding allows us to appreciate life even more deeply. A flower becomes more beautiful because it blooms for only a short time. A conversation with a loved one becomes more precious because it can never be repeated in exactly the same way. Every breath becomes sacred because it is unique. Impermanence does not diminish beauty, it reveals it. This insight also transforms meditation. Many practitioners begin meditation hoping to become someone extraordinary or to attain permanent states of peace. The Heart Sutra gently redirects our attention. Rather than constructing a better self, meditation gradually reveals that every fixed self-image is empty. Thoughts arise and pass away. Feelings arise and disappear. Sensations come and go. Awareness remains open, spacious, and free from grasping. Little by little, the burden of defending an imagined separate self begins to dissolve. Experience continues, life continues, compassion continues, but fear gradually loses its foundation. This is the freedom the Buddha pointed toward, not escaping birth and death, but seeing through the misunderstanding that makes birth and death appear absolute. The Buddha once compared his teachings to a raft used for crossing a river. Dependent origination helps us understand how suffering arises. Emptiness reveals that neither suffering nor the one who suffers possesses an independent existence. Together, these teachings guide us along the middle way, avoiding both eternalism and nihilism. They reveal a freedom that is neither found by clinging to existence nor by denying it. As we conclude today's reflection, take this question into your meditation. When a thought appears, where does it come from? When it disappears, where does it go? Can you find the exact moment when it is independently born? Can you discover the precise place where it independently dies? Or do you simply witness an ever-changing dance of conditions, endlessly arising and passing away? The Heart Sutra invites us to rest in this direct seeing. Birth and death continue to appear, yet wisdom recognizes that what arises is empty, and what is empty continues to arise. There is no contradiction, only the profound freedom that comes from seeing reality exactly as it is. In our next lesson, we will encounter perhaps the most shocking statement in the entire Heart Sutra. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. Has the Buddha suddenly abandoned the Four Noble Truths, the very first teaching he gave after his enlightenment? Or is the Heart Sutra revealing an even deeper dimension of those timeless truths? Join me as we uncover why this extraordinary declaration has challenged and inspired Buddhist practitioners for centuries. Until then, may your practice continue to deepen. May wisdom illuminate your understanding. May compassion guide your actions. And may you continue your journey toward the other shore with clarity, courage, and peace.